Have you ever wondered what really happened during the Great Flood? We all know the story of Noah's Ark, a massive boat built to save his family and two of every animal. But what if there's more to the story? What if there were giants roaming the earth, powerful beings whose very existence threatened humanity? What happened to them and to everyone else left behind when the waters began to rise? This isn't just a tale of survival. It's a story of why the world needed a reset. Let's travel back in time to a world very different from our own. According to ancient texts like the Book of Genesis and the apocryphal Book of Enoch, humanity wasn't just thriving. It was spiraling out of control. The world was filled with corruption and wickedness. But this wasn't just ordinary human misbehavior. The Book of Enoch introduces a fascinating and terrifying element: the Watchers. These weren't just celestial observers. The Watchers were a group of angels who, captivated by the beauty of human women, descended to earth and took them as wives. This union was forbidden, a mixing of the divine and the mortal that produced a fearsome offspring, the Nephilim. Imagine beings of immense size and strength, with an insatiable appetite. The stories describe them as giants who consumed all the resources of humankind. When that wasn't enough, they turned on humanity itself, and then on each other. The world descended into chaos, a brutal landscape dominated by these powerful, destructive hybrids. The earth groaned under the weight of their violence and lawlessness. This was the world Noah was born into. Now, picture Noah. Genesis describes him as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, who walked faithfully with God. In a world consumed by darkness, Noah was a single point of light. It's hard to imagine the courage it must have taken to live a righteous life surrounded by such overwhelming turmoil. He wasn't just a good person. He was a beacon of hope in a world that had lost its way. And so the decision was made. The world was so corrupted that it needed to be washed clean. A great flood was coming, a cataclysm that would wipe the slate clean and offer a fresh start. But Noah and his family found favor. He was given a monumental task: build an ark. This wasn't just any boat. The dimensions given in Genesis describe a colossal vessel about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Think about that. That's 1.5 football fields long. And he had to build it using only the tools of his time, likely wood, gopher wood to be precise, and pitch to make it waterproof. Can you imagine the scene? Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, working day in and day out on this massive structure. What must their neighbors have thought? Here was this man in the middle of dry land building a gigantic boat, all while proclaiming that a world-ending flood was coming. The texts suggest he preached for decades, warning people of the impending doom and urging them to repent. Yet it seems no one listened. They likely mocked him, called him a madman. They were caught up in their own lives, their own corruption, completely blind to the storm gathering on the horizon. While Noah toiled, what were the Nephilim doing? The Book of Enoch paints a grim picture. They continued their reign of terror, confident in their own power. Perhaps they laughed at the old man in his wooden box. What was a flood to them? Beings of such immense strength. They were the lords of the earth, seemingly invincible. They had no idea that their time was running out, that the very foundation of their power was about to be washed away. Then the day came. Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives entered the ark, and then came the animals. 2 of every kind, male and female, streaming into the vessel in an orderly procession. It must have been a sight beyond belief. A parade of life, entering a sanctuary of survival, guided by a divine hand. Once the last creature was aboard, the door of the ark was shut. Not by Noah, but by God, sealing them in and sealing the rest of the world out. For 7 days, there was an eerie silence. The world outside continued as it always had. People marrying, celebrating, ignoring the strange sight of the giant, sealed vessel. And then it began. It wasn't just rain. Genesis says, "The springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Water erupted from beneath the ground and poured relentlessly from the sky." It was a deluge of unimaginable proportions. The water level rose steadily, swallowing up valleys, then hills, then the highest mountains. Imagine the panic that must have gripped the world. The laughter and mockery would have turned to screams of terror. People would have scrambled for higher ground, desperately trying to escape the rising tide. And what of the Nephilim? Their great strength would have been useless against the sheer, overwhelming power of the water. They may have been able to wade through the initial flooding, but as the water rose higher and higher, even these giants would have been overcome. Their cities, their monuments, their entire civilization erased. The ancient stories don't just speak of their physical demise. The Book of Enoch says their spirits were bound to the earth, destined to wander as malevolent forces. The flood was not just the end of their physical bodies, but the beginning of a different kind of spiritual conflict. Inside the ark, it would have been a world of its own. The sounds of the storm raging outside, the rocking of the massive vessel on the turbulent waters, and the chorus of countless animals. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell without pause. For a total of 150 days, the water covered the earth, a vast, silent ocean with a single vessel floating upon its surface. This period on the ark wasn't a vacation, it was an act of faith and endurance. Caring for that many animals, living in close quarters, adrift on a dead world. The psychological toll must have been immense. Every day was a test of Noah's trust that the waters would eventually recede and that the promise of a new beginning would be fulfilled. Finally, after months of floating, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. But the journey wasn't over. Noah had to wait for the waters to recede. He sent out a raven, which flew back and forth. Then he sent a dove. The first time it returned, finding no place to land. A week later, he sent it out again, and this time it returned with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. This was the sign. New life was beginning to emerge. The flood was over. When Noah and his family finally stepped out of the ark, they emerged into a brand new world. A world washed clean, silent, and empty. The air was fresh. A rainbow appeared in the sky, a beautiful, vibrant arc of color, a promise that the world would never again be destroyed by a flood. The story of the Great Flood is more than just an ancient myth. It's a powerful narrative about consequences, redemption, and second chances. It explores the depths of human corruption and the heights of faith. The inclusion of the Nephilim adds a layer of epic fantasy, a battle between good and evil on a cosmic scale. It forces us to ask profound questions. What happens when humanity strays too far from its path? What does it take to start over? The story of those left behind, the scoffers, the violent, the powerful giants, serves as a somber reminder of the consequences of ignoring warnings and living without regard for others. But ultimately, it's a story of hope. It ends not with destruction, but with a covenant, a rainbow, a promise of a new beginning. Noah and his family were given the chance to repopulate and rebuild, armed with the lessons of the past. It's a timeless tale that continues to fascinate and inspire us, reminding us of the delicate balance between order and chaos, and the enduring power of faith in the face of overwhelming odds. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the deeper story of the flood as fascinating as I did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into mysteries.